Bite-sized.
Welcome to Gaikoku Gamers. I'm Darryl Benson. I'm here to talk to you guys today about HDifying your old Nintendo consoles, specifically the Nintendo 64 and the Nintendo GameCube. Behind me, as you can tell, is a Nintendo GameCube. And it's displaying through component. Now, only certain GameCubes are activable here. The first batch of GameCubes had digital out and AV out. Digital out, if you had these really expensive, seriously look them up on eBay, cords, they would be able to go ahead and transmit a higher definition, not HD, but a higher definition, I think it was 480p, if I'm not mistaken, image to your television screen, and it would be widescreen, which is awesome on modern day sets. And as you can see from Mario Kart Double Dash behind me, it looks fantastic. Now, you'll probably also notice that, where am I here? That the GameCube is an orange spice-colored GameCube, which was not released in the States, but was released in Japan exclusively. And underneath it, you'll also see that it's a spice-colored Game Boy Advance adapter. And I have the disc and everything. To tell you a little bit about that, you do need to have a Japanese disc for a Japanese system. However, the Game Boy Advance reader itself on both the American and the Japanese models are region-free, so you can play any region Game Boy Advance or Game Boy game inside. Remember, Nintendo only started putting region locks in their portable line starting with the 3DS and everything, so whatever. Anyway, so this console is actually able to produce a really nice signal. Now, unfortunately, in order to cut costs, Nintendo thought, well, everyone has a standard definition TV right now anyway, so we can save a lot of money if we don't put the digital out port inside. So later GameCube, you need to go ahead and check that later GameCubes might only have the AV port. They are impossible to have a higher resolution display coming out the back, literally. Now the cool thing is that most sellers yet have not really figured out that the ones with digital out are more popular. So they generally sell all GameCubes at the right price, at the same price. So if you have a local store, like a mom and pop video game store, and they have a few GameCubes, make sure you get one with digital out. Even if you're not willing to go ahead and plunk down the money for that cable just yet, it's a good investment. Speaking of the cable, there were some companies overseas and here in the States that made third-party component cables for the Nintendo GameCube, or at least it so appeared. Typically these also had PlayStation 2 and original Xbox leads out. Now that means that the component would work on those two systems because they didn't have anything special going on with those two systems. But on a GameCube, it would simply be able to only push out composite. Those component cords didn't do anything. So don't think that you can go all cheap and get some third-party cords that look like it's going to be able to run composite from your GameCube. It's not possible. There's a little teeny chip on the nub of the cord in the plastic, and that little chip goes ahead and converts the signal, the raw digital signal, to an analog format through the composite, or from the component. So without that chip, unfortunately, component cords aren't going to do anything. I do really recommend this. Now, to be fair, the Nintendo Wii had this available to it, and the component cords for that are a lot cheaper. Earlier Wii's had GameCube support. Make sure again that you have a Wii that has the GameCube controllers under the flap and the memory card slots. I personally don't like the Wii look as much, and I don't like that I have to go through that stupid Wii menu in order to get to the GameCube end. Also, the Wii doesn't play Game Boy Advance games, so if you have a decent collection of those, it's not going to do those. And frankly, yeah, it's going to be cheaper, but also I've been noticing a trend, and that's Nintendo Wii's must not have been made very well, because in the last year or so I've been noticing a lot of people are reporting that their Wii's have a broken disk drive and it stopped reading discs. Now, I'm sure that's not for everybody, but the game disk drives in these things, well, providing you don't have a Panasonic Cube, but in the regular GameCubes, they are tough as nails, and they will never go bad on you. And I'm starting to think that basically it's just the drives that seem to have some sort of movement mechanism, whether it's the Wii where it sucks in a disc, or the Panasonic Cube where it has a tray. Nintendo doesn't have very good luck when it comes to moving parts. Probably why their cartridge-based systems are so reliable and the GameCube is so reliable. But the Wii and the Wii U seem to have some problems every once in a while with those drives. So that's up to you. Technically, an old Wii will do the job. I just don't think it looks quite right. I hate that the GameCube ports are on the side or top, depending on your orientation of the Wii system. It seems more like an afterthought, and it is, to be fair. So I recommend this GameCube. I think it's fantastic. I recommend the Japanese one purely because the boxes are really cool, and I'll probably have to do another video on that. And if you get a freeloader disc, you should be able to be fine with playing anything from any region whatsoever. So that's the GameCube. Now, the N64, I should bring it over here. The N64 doesn't have such an option, and that's unfortunate because, at least for me, the N64 is one of my favorite systems of all time. Now, the good thing about it is that they are moddable. As you can see, this system looks, perfectly normal. Except it's been modded to go ahead and output an RGB signal. Now, this is a lot more complicated than that GameCube is, but basically, this will not only go ahead and push out a composite standard definition signal, but it'll also push out a SCART RGB signal. Now, this gets a little confusing because people in the States never had SCART, and I can't blame anyone for being confused because, frankly, I was too, as was the person who modded this system, sadly enough. They did not know what cables to use on it. Now, you're probably thinking, oh, well, as long as it has a Nintendo plug on the end and as long as it's a SCART cable, you're good to go. No, you're not. You see, there's two different cables that were produced, and this applies to third-party and Nintendo cables. There's a difference between the Japanese and the PAL cables, and there's even differences amongst those. But basically, the main differences are that there's a sync cable and a C-sync cable. And if you're not from Europe or Japan, you probably have no idea what the hell this is. And I'm not going to complicate anything by trying to explain it. Basically, it's just how the wiring is set up inside the plug itself. The plugs look identical to each other. It's just the wires are going to different pins. Now, the problem with this is that if you get the wrong one, it will not display anything. You have to get the regular sync cable for an RGB modded 64. If you don't get the regular sync cable, then it will not display an image. If you get the C-Sync cable, it will not work. So get the sync cable. After that, you want to go ahead and, can I have my lovely assistant here give me my converter box? Go ahead and get a video converter. This will, it's a typical one you see on eBay, a little black box that says HD converter on the top. I don't know why the name of it on the box is different than the name of it on the system, whatever. But this thing will allow you to go ahead and plug in the SCART through one end and an HDMI cord through the other. And it will go ahead and give you a really nice clean image. Now, it might not be immediately noticeable, but a lot of the jaggies that you see and a lot of the color problems that you'll see will go away. And it's a really fantastic addition, especially if you're really addicted to Nintendo 64 and, like you, have realized, or like me, have realized that the N64 pretty much looks like crap on an HD screen. Some systems go just perfectly fine with composite. My PC Engine looks fantastic. Super Nintendo's NES's look fantastic. Even my 3DO looks pretty good. Very good, in fact. But Nintendo 64 did not look so great. GameCube's better, but I would still recommend the component cable for that, and I would definitely recommend getting an RGB mod. You can get these things for about $80, $90 to upwards of $120 to $140 if maybe they went ahead and did this to a fantastic system. Modded already, but without the cord. The Nintendo brand cord can run you anywhere from $40 to $80, whereas a third-party cord, if you hunt a little bit on eBay, and if you're patient for one to come up, should only run you about $16 to $19 shipped. So it's definitely within your interest to get third-party cables. The hard thing about that, though, is just making sure you understand which is which so you get the right one. I, unfortunately, was told by the person who modded this to get the wrong cord. So I have to return that now, and I have the new one coming, It's kind of a mess, but it is what it is. The price is worth getting this done because these frankly just don't look very good anymore. And if you're like me and emulation just doesn't cut it, and you really want to play your cartridges on a real system, or even if you have an EverDrive and you want to play your EverDrive on a real system with a real controller, like the Hori controllers, which are fantastic for the N64, then this is probably your best bet. You're not going to get emulator clean, overly sharp looking polygons, but it's going to be good enough that you can kind of get through it. And while you probably won't be able to tell too well, the image coming out of both of these systems, once modded and or with the correct cables, looks pretty dang fantastic. And that also includes text. One thing that the N64 especially was really bad at through composite images was the text was blurry, especially around the border of the text. The component cable, or I shouldn't say component, the SCART to HDMI really cleans that up. Now you're still going to see like the low resolution bumps, kind of like a Super Nintendo of the still image, but it's going to be clean. It won't be fuzzy. And the N64 especially had that really fuzzy look to it when you're trying to play it on an HD TV, and this pretty much eliminates all of that. So I would definitely recommend the mod. Once again, guys on eBay, or in this case, guys on Atari Age, go ahead and mod these. My modder was Yerky on Atari Age. He has a Donkey Kong Jr., I believe, avatar. His screen name is YURKIE. He did a good job, but again, he didn't know which cable to use, so I'm passing that on to you. I really hope that if you, for whatever reason, aren't taking my advice and you just want the simple advice, just get a Nintendo brand cable and you won't have any problems whatsoever. Until then, I'm Darryl Benson, and thank you for watching another bite-sized episode of Gaikoku Gamers. We'll see you next time.